So welcome with me. Join me in welcoming Doug Miller.
Where's my fireworks? Do I get fireworks and smoke and all of that? Well, thank you for inviting me here. This is really, I'm blessed to be able to do what I love for a living, and I feel honored that you guys have asked me to come here and speak about that, because I am really passionate about what I get to do for a living, so thank you very much. Now, when I left the corporate world, I guess it was 5 years ago, I vowed two things. One was to never have to wear a suit again unless it was a wedding or a funeral. And two was never to have to do another PowerPoint presentation. So tonight you get me in a polo and a little tiny piece of paper, and we're just gonna kind of wing this. So I'm gonna talk about my faith and how that shapes my views on fitness and business. But first I'm gonna give you a little bit of background about myself. So my church background, my background in fitness, my background in business, and then I'm gonna tie it together and talk to you about kind of how my faith drives all of that. So, my walk with Christ, I grew up in a Lutheran family. I had two very loving parents. They just celebrated their 49th wedding anniversary, and they're still happily married. And we were one of those families that went to church on Christmas and Easter, and we tried to go a couple weeks before Christmas and a couple weeks before Easter, so that when we showed up on Easter and Christmas, we didn't look like those people that only come on Easter and Christmas. But, you know, we went some other times of the year, and I was affirmed, I believe is what they called it, in the Lutheran church when I was 13. But I'll be honest with you today is, at that time, I didn't even know what that meant. You know, I didn't even know what being a Christ follower meant. It wasn't until I met my wife, Stephanie, that I found Christ. So when we first started dating, I believe we were 24 or so. And you know, when you first start dating somebody, you pretty much will do whatever they want you to do. So she drugged me to church. It was really the last thing I wanted to do, but she drugged me to McLean Bible Church, and we started going. And that's where I found out what it meant to be a Christ follower, and that's where I found Christ. And she then drugged me again to a small group. I reluctantly went, and that's where I kind of deepened my relationship with Christ and started getting into the Word more. And that group was a very tight-knit group. A lot of people started having kids and moving away, and we kind of became disconnected from the church for a little bit. We found Columbia, I believe, through a Google search is how we found Columbia. So we showed up here, we sat in the pews for every Sunday for about 2 years, until finally we're like, all right, maybe we should go up front and become members and do this thing. So we went up and spoke to Jim and, you know, said we wanted to become members. And then it wasn't until another, 3 or 4 years after that and 2 kids later that I decided, okay, now I guess it's time for me to actually get baptized. And so I was baptized here, I believe last April. And so that's really kind of been, you know, my walk with Christ and where I am here today. You know, we might have been a little bit of late bloomers, but I like to think that we're, you know, catching up for some lost time now with some of the, I don't even like to call it ministry, but I guess it is, that how we're able to influence other people and share our story with them. So that's my church story. My fitness story and my story for bodybuilding was, growing up, I was extremely skinny. I was probably graduated high school, I was 125 pounds soaking wet. I was a really good athlete though. When I graduated high school, I had 11 varsity letters in soccer, swimming, and baseball, and I pretty much trained and played all year round. I was recruited by a number of smaller Division I AA schools, but I realized I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. And you know, the size was what was really, you know, holding me back. I had the talent, I didn't have the size or the speed to be where I needed to be. So I went off to Penn State University and pursued academics over athletics. I studied biochemistry and molecular biology and economics in their honors program. And when I went off to school, I was so focused on the academics, but I really missed that athletic training. I missed being able to push my physical body to the limit. And so freshman year, a buddy of mine on my dorm room hall said, let's go to the gym. And so we went to the gym, and I was pretty much instantly hooked. I then spent the next 4 years basically studying, eating, the occasional partying, training, and just researching bodybuilding. I bought every bodybuilding magazine that was out there. You know, the internet wasn't as big then as it is now. I mean, we're talking, this is 1998. And I just researched as much as I could, and I really became, I don't want to say addicted, but really hooked on bodybuilding. I thought it was amazing. Like, I literally would work out for 2 hours, come home and eat 3 boxes of cereal, and, you know, miraculously I gained 30 pounds of muscle in the first 6 months. I mean, at 18, it's really easy to do that if you're doing the right things. And so it was really a passion of mine. Fast forward a couple years later, I moved down to DC and started my corporate career. I was living in Silver Spring. Silver Spring, Maryland. I was 22 years old, working out at a gym, and I got talked into doing a bodybuilding show. I really was fascinated about the weight training and bodybuilding, but I really didn't know what actually competing was. And so I, again, started researching on my own. I didn't have a coach. I literally did everything wrong. I mean, like, everything wrong. Like, I read every trick in the book to look good on stage. Like, I was drinking wine backstage, and I cut out all sodium, and I literally almost passed out on stage. It was an awful experience, but I did win the novice division. It was my first competition, so I was like, oh man, this is cool. Like, maybe there's something here. Like, I love winning, right? So again, I kind of just stuck with it. And the next year I did another competition, and this time, because I won the novice, I entered an open competition, which is the more advanced people. And somehow I won the overall, which is I won my weight class and then the overall title. And that made me eligible to compete as a pro. And let me explain a little bit to you about bodybuilding. There's 2 types of bodybuilding. There's natural bodybuilding, and then there's bodybuilding. So I compete in the natural realm. That means we get lie detector tested, polygraph tested, and urine tested for all our competitions. So we can't use performance enhancing drugs. We can't use steroids. And a lot of people think, well, shouldn't all bodybuilding be that way? Well, then there's the untested side. The side that is actually much bigger. And when you see those big 300-pound kind of freaks, you know, I mean, I kind of say freaks in a good way because we all kind of want to be as big as we possibly can who are bodybuilders. You know, they're using steroids, they're using growth hormone, they're using insulin, they're using diuretics. Their lifespan is, like, honestly 50 years old if they keep that up. And there's been some tragic deaths recently in that sport. It's a very dangerous sport. So just to make that clear, I'll put that out there right off the bat. So I'm a natural bodybuilder, and there's a big difference, and I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I started competing and started winning shows, and then I started doing pro shows and started winning pro shows, started competing with my wife. She's a pro figure competitor, and she started winning pro shows, and we became very successful. Eventually, that kind of culminated in 2009 and 2014, where I won the IFPA Pro Yorton Cup World Championship. So that is like the pinnacle, that's like the World Series of natural bodybuilding. You know, some will argue that that's the highest you can pretty much get in the sport of natural bodybuilding. And so that was probably my greatest achievement, was winning that in 2009 and coming back and winning it in 2014. And again, I didn't have a coach during this time. I kind of just figured this all out on my own. And so that was literally like the first business that we started was our own coaching business. So my wife and I started a business, we called it Team Miller. And what we did is we coached other bodybuilders, because literally I had to do everything wrong and figure it out for myself what worked. And I wanted to kind of shorten that time frame for other people. So we created Team Miller, and we started coaching people, and we started getting, as we became more successful, we started coaching people, literally it was from all over the world. Australia, Japan, the Middle East, you know, all throughout the United States, and it was, you know, it was very cool. So that was really kind of our first business. How I got into kind of what I do today is also related to bodybuilding and to fitness. And so when I graduated college and I moved down to Washington, D.C., I did economic litigation consulting. It's boring, but it was a great job. I made great money. I was surrounded by extremely smart people, which I love, but it certainly wasn't my passion. But during that time, and I was there for 12 years, so I was there a long time, I was continuing to learn and had this passion of bodybuilding. And so again, I researched on my own, and I was looking at dietary supplements. What supplements could I take that were still considered natural and that could help my performance? And I got very frustrated, and I think it was because of my science background. There was a lot of companies, this is around 2004, that were using fillers in their products. They were using artificial colors. They were underdosing products, so not using ingredients in their dietary supplements at the standards that should be used to actually see an effect from them. And my biggest pet peeve is they were using proprietary blends. A proprietary blend is something where, so if you say let's call it a fat burning pill, has 10 ingredients in it, what they might do is put some real expensive ingredients in there and use the marketing from those expensive ingredients to sell the product. But they don't tell you exactly how much of those ingredients that are in there, so they literally stick 1 milligram. They pixie dust it, as we call in the industry. And then they load it up with caffeine, so you get all jittery and feel like, oh man, this must be working. That's pretty much the majority. That was 95% of the supplement market. So I was like, man, I can do this, and I can do this better. I know I can. And so I just started researching on my own. I took a $20,000 investment of my own money and started Core Nutritionals back in December 2004. The product came to market in 2005. Our first product was Core MRP. This is it didn't look like this back then. It was literally like a really ugly white tub, and it just said MRP. It was terrible. But this was a meal replacement product. As a consultant, somebody working a desk job and running in and out of meetings and talking to attorneys and all this, I needed a quick meal replacement, something to get protein and nutrients and all that stuff. There was nothing on the market. Everything had fillers. I was like, I wanted something based on whole grain fiber, all your vitamins and minerals, a good quality protein blend, and I know exactly what's in it. So literally, we created this one product. And so we stick to the same principles today in 2018 that we did when we first started back here, and that's no proprietary blends, no fillers, no artificial colors, just really top quality premium products. At the end of the day, I tell people, I'm designing these products around what I want to use. If you guys want to use them too, great. And I think that resonates really well with the consumer, knowing that myself as the CEO is actually taking all of these products. So today, as I stand here, we have almost 100 different SKUs in this line. This is just one of the products, and we're sold across the world, throughout the US and really around the world at this point. So this is my baby. The Core Nutritionals is my baby that I started. I was building this brand as I was becoming more successful in natural bodybuilding. And then it wasn't really until 2013 when I had a really candid conversation with my boss at the time, and he encouraged me that if you need to go and follow your passion, this is your passion, you'll always have a job here, go. And I know as soon as you leave, 6 months later, you're gonna come back and tell me, man, I wish I would have left 5 years earlier. And he was 100% right. I'm thrilled that I get to do what I do for a living, and that's design these awesome products. Our other businesses, so we have some other businesses that are very much related to this. We have a chain of retail stores. The retail stores started out of necessity, just like Core Nutritionals did. So at the time, there wasn't a product on the market that I wanted to use, so I created a product on the market that I wanted to use. Fast forward to about 2010, when this brand was starting to get bigger and we were starting to get distribution throughout the US, I was realizing that there weren't quality retailers out there. Everybody just wanted the sale today, and they were paying their salesmen literally to sell specific products. Well, that's really kind of disingenuous, and you're pitching certain products to people that come in the store that might not need those products. And that's how they ran that business. And a lot of the people working at those stores weren't educated in the products they were selling. And so I felt like, man, something needs to change. And so Stephanie and I started Arlington Nutrition Corner in 2010. It's right across on Wilson Boulevard, across from like the Boston Mall. And the idea behind the store is that we wanted to create a resource. We didn't want to be a retailer. We really wanted to be a resource to the community for health and fitness products, diets, training, and all of that. We also have the other principles of best brands. We carry brands that other stores don't carry. Best pricing, we'll match Amazon Prime. We're not concerned about, pricing at our store. We want to get the best products in your hand, and even if we make a low margin on a product, we want your business, because we really feel like we're the people that should be educating you, and we want you to come to our store to talk to us so we can help you reach your goals. So that was our first store in 2010. We now have 10 stores. We just opened our 10th store. It's in Bethesda, Maryland. We have stores throughout Northern Virginia, down in the Hampton Roads area, and now we're starting to move into the Maryland area. So that's our second business that we run now. So luckily, I have a great management team, which I'll talk about a little bit later, for those stores, that I can focus more on the brands and let them handle the stores. I ultimately make decisions about the stores, but I'm just very blessed to have a great team to be able to expand those stores. Our third business, and this is why my wife thinks I'm crazy with all these businesses, because I always come home with a new idea. Our third business is another supplement brand. It's called America Labs. And the idea behind this brand, I chuckle every time I think about this because I know the story behind it. We were having a problem in our retail stores, and we carry such a wide range of products that some of the products we carry, I would say are less than great products just because they're popular on the market. They're popular on the market because they have really fancy labels. They have like clowns with their eyes gouged out that might make somebody want to take it because it looks going to get them fired up to work out. And people would come in and they maybe didn't want to talk to us. They'd take that product off the shelf, they'd put it down, and they would buy the product and they never buy it again. We might never see them in the store again because they had such a lousy experience. So I thought, well, man, we can do this and we can do it better. We can come up with an over-the-top brand that is driven by marketing, has great labels, that resonates really well with people, but sticks to the same ethics and principles that we use with our premium core nutritionals line, so that maybe the labels will make you buy it the first time, and the funny marketing makes you buy it the first time, but the quality of the product's gonna make you buy it over and over. And so this brand launched in 2017. We did more in sales our first year than it took me 8 years with core nutritionals. And we came up with this idea during the election. Actually, this flavor is called Make America Grape Again. And we became very quickly, on Facebook right now, we are the #1 most engaged with supplement brand in the industry. And it might not be because of the products or the ingredients. They don't even look at the panels. This strikes a chord. We also have an impeachment flavor too for the people on the left. This really strikes a chord with the people. And people get fired up. It's crazy how excited they get or angry they get about when we don't even make a political stand. We just saying we're putting out the best products. We love America. We love freedom. We're very thankful for that. That's all we say. But then we put up some funny pictures and people get all upset. So this was our second brand, and this brand is now, it's taken off. It's crazy. This brand is now sold across the world as well, through the same distribution channels as Core. Then, finally, I swear I'm going to stop after this, but our fourth business that we run right now, which again, this is why my wife really thinks I'm crazy. I was like, man, those supplements are crazy how everyone's latching onto this. Wouldn't it be great to have an energy drink using the same marketing? So we came up with America Energy. And this is like your Monster, your Rockstar, your Red Bull, your energy drink. And again, we all drank Monster at our headquarters, and we said, man, we can do that and we can do it better. And I honestly think we did. This launched Memorial Day this year. We sold out of our first 80 pallets of the product in the first 2 weeks that we had the product. And the feedback has been literally, it's the best energy drink they've ever had. So that's my story on businesses. And my life right now, as my wife will attest to, is really crazy. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a crazy journey. I wake up every morning and I have no idea what I'm gonna get into that day. But I love doing it and I love the people that I do it with. So I'm very thankful for that. So for the meat of what I want to talk about tonight is how does my faith play itself out or shape my views on all this fitness that's in my life and business. And I'll be honest, when Eric first asked me to come here and speak about this, I was like, man, that's a tough one. I realized I guess I just don't trust in the Lord as much as I should in these situations in my businesses. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. But then I started really thinking about it, and God and His Word has been at the center of pretty much everything I've done and everything that I do for my businesses. In fact, it was 2 services ago, I was sitting next to my wife and I pull out one of the envelopes in the pew and I just start writing down stuff. And I came up with a list of 24 instances in which my faith shapes my actions or my views in fitness. So I have 6 things that I thought were the most important, or the things that spoke the most to me about how my faith plays out in what I do. Number 1 is I lead through action and not necessarily words. I'm not a preachy guy. I'm not somebody walk up, hey, have you spoken to Jesus today? Do you know Jesus? That's just not my style at all. I'd rather kind of lead in a way that might model Jesus, never, getting there, but and be a great example for people, and then that can potentially open the door down the line to have that conversation. And so I'm sure Jim and Greg could spout off 50 verses that talk about action speaking louder than words. But first and foremost, as CEO of a dietary supplement company, I guess I would say I'm not necessarily the norm in our industry. We do business meetings literally in the gym. A lot of people do business meetings at a bar. I use all the products that I create. And so I think that resonates really well, and it attracts a great group of customers and a great group of employees. Also, I think in the bodybuilding world, I could have gone down the route of using drugs. They're not hard to get. Many people in the industry are using them. I might have an extra 500,000 Instagram followers if I went down that route. But I know that's not the right thing in my heart to do. It's not the right example for my kids. It's, I don't want to die early, And so I know that's not the right thing to do. And again, I think that attracts a certain group of people. From a manufacturing standpoint, my actions there, this is an industry that is not regulated by the FDA. So I could very easily manufacture this stuff literally in my bathtub and sell it to you and make a lot more money. But instead, we contract the best manufacturers that follow FDA guidelines that get tested, and then we go over and above and spend even more money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do third-party independent testing on top of it. And these are the things that I think attract people to what we're trying to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why my baptism was so important for me. The action of getting baptized, I was pretty confident in my relationship with Christ and where I stood. That, I was like, do I need to go get dunked, in front of everyone? I'm going to heaven, I know I am. But I wanted to do that for my 2 boys at home. I wanted to do it for my employees to see. I wanted to do it for all my Instagram followers to see. In a time when, sometimes it's not cool to talk about religion or Jesus, because people might get offended and then they're not going to buy my product. I don't care, right? If you don't want to buy my product because of that, that's fine. I'm still going to survive. But the feedback was overwhelmingly amazing. And I like to think that has opened the door for me to have the Christ conversation with a number of people. I like to think maybe in a small part, 2 of my best employees and 2 of my closest friends, Pat and Sam, got baptized this past year because of that. Maybe. And so letting my actions do the speaking is very important to me, and one of the first principles that I try to stick to. The second thing is patience and persistence. I talk about this a lot with most of my employees. Most of my employees are millennials. And everyone knows millennials, they're entitled, lazy, or whatnot. But I don't believe that necessarily. I think that their biggest problem is that they're not patient. In a time when you can order something on Amazon today and it's delivered at home in 2 hours in Vienna, Virginia, you know, they want everything now. They want to be a world championship bodybuilder now. You know, they want their store that they're managing to be doing $1 million now. And that's something that for me just hasn't been the case, and I think I've been able to practice patience. You know, to become a world championship champion bodybuilder, bodybuilding isn't something like where you have a baseball season and then you have an off season. You know, as we like to say for Team Miller, there is no off season. You actually make your progress and work hard in the growth season. When you're dieting to get ready for a competition, you're not making gains, you're just trying to hold what you have. And it was literally 10 years before I picked up a weight, maybe more than that, 10 plus years before I ever picked up a weight to the time that I won the world championship. And that was literally training every day for 10 years, every day. Eating right, watching what I ate, literally tracking what I ate every day for 10 years. You know, doing everything right, making sure I got as much sleep as I could to help my body stay healthy and grow. It takes a lot of patience. Related to business, I didn't take out $1 from Core Nutritionals for the first 8 years we were in business, not a penny. I put it all back in. Now we're a multi-million-dollar business with zero debt on the books. And that's because I had patience. I don't have anyone else's money building that business, and it's because of the patience and the persistence that I had. The number three way in which I think my faith plays out in business is probably one of my favorites. And that is living kind of the crush it lifestyle. So crush it for us is, actually it's on my shirt, crush it. This is like, crush it is to Core Nutritionals as just do it is to Nike. It is our motto. It's not just crush it in the gym, I'm gonna go crush my workout, it's to crush everything you do. I have this burning passion and desire to literally be the best I can be at everything I do. And I really want to be the best at everything I do, not just the best I can be. I want to be the best. I know this makes it really hard to live with me sometimes, and or work for me sometimes. But Colossians 3:23 is one of my favorite. You know, whatever you do, do it with all your heart as working for the Lord. I truly believe that, and I live that out in everything I do. And so that's been just a huge principle in my life. I feel like if I do something only halfway, I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like, what's the point of even doing this? And so that one for me is like, yeah, at one point it makes me sometimes hard to get along with. At the other point, I think it's made me successful in where I am today. And I know that the Lord wants me to do the best I can possibly be the best I can possibly be at everything I do. And so that one's really important to me. Number 4. So number 4 is I try to stick to our company's hedgehog concept. In other words, I try to stick to my spiritual calling. So I don't know if some of you remember, Jim had the series on faith in the workplace, and he talked about how to figure out what your spiritual calling is. And he talked about it's where you're passionate, where there's opportunity, and where you're talented. In business, we love the book. It's called Good to Great. If you've never read it, you should read it. It's by Jim Collins. He talks about the hedgehog concept. It's the same thing, but it's kind of like we have our Bible and then we have our secular Bible. We make all our employees of the Nutrition Corners literally read this book. I was introduced to it by my general manager now, Carl Fradia. And I read it and it literally changed my view on everything. But anyways, the hedgehog concept, and let me explain what the hedgehog concept is first. So the idea is there's a fox and there's a hedgehog, and the fox is constantly trying to get at the hedgehog. And he comes up with all these cunning, crazy ways to, outsmart the hedgehog. But the hedgehog does the same thing every time. He curls up in a tiny little ball, and he wins. The fox always loses because he goes back to the same thing that always works, and he curls up in a little ball. So we try to stick to our spiritual calling or our hedgehog concept in everything I do. We actually have these conversations in our conference room. We sit there, and because I'm always all over the place with my ideas and stuff, and literally somebody will say, "Is that really our hedgehog concept?" And I'll be like, "All right, no, you're right. Maybe in a couple years we can do that." And I think sticking with my spiritual calling, which I believe is helping people learn more about health and fitness and proper supplementation and things to better their physical being, is what I try to stick to. Very much related to this is number 5, and that is the idea of multiplying or expanding your vision. This goes back to the Global Leadership Seminar from 2016. So here's a plug for the Global Leadership Seminar or Summit. It's an amazing experience. You should definitely go to it. This was literally life-changing for me at the moment. So this was 2 summers ago. And I was kind of struggling. I don't even know if Steph knows the details of this. I was kind of struggling with my path of where I was going. People are trying to find a cure for cancer and solving world hunger, or they're a pastor or doing all this stuff, and I'm trying to get people jacked. Like just ripped and jacked and look great on the beach. And, I started thinking, I was like, is this really what God wants me to do? And there was a speaker at the seminar, I forget his name, but he was an Indian guy who, what's his name? Yes, that's it, yeah. And he was planning churches. And, his goal was to open up something like 10,000 churches. And he spoke about, that was his spiritual calling, and it doesn't have to be planting churches. Whatever God has put in your heart, you owe it. If you have the opportunity, if you have the resources to expand, you owe it to God to do that, because you don't know who you're gonna touch with that, and you also don't know who might miss out on being touched by that. And so for me, that spoke to me a lot, because, while health and fitness and bodybuilding and all this stuff comes easy to me, it's my passion, I love it, I know a lot of people out there struggle with it. They struggle with diets. They struggle with staying in shape. And so that really convicted me to, man, we really need to continue to push and continue to grow and get the good word out of not only just health and fitness, but for our brands, the quality of our products, so that people are taking the right products. And that year in 2016, we pushed forward and we opened 4 stores that year. It was kind of crazy. And so not only were we able to reach more people and spread the good word and become more of a resource for those people, but I was also able to create a lot more jobs for guys and gals that are really passionate about health and fitness, that wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to help people without these positions. And that is really near and dear to my heart. I struggle with all the time. I struggle with I want to make every one of my employees rich. I know that sounds crazy, but that's one of my goals. It's and I struggle with that, the fine line of running a business with tight budgets and all of that, and also making everyone have more abundance than they know what to do with. But I want to I'm really passionate about creating those jobs for people that might not otherwise have what I like to think is an amazing job, because we get to help people and talk about things on a daily basis that we actually love. And so if you go into any of our stores and you talk to our guys and our girls, they are extremely passionate about what they do. And that's why I love growing what we're doing, because we get to reach more people and create more jobs for those people. Finally, also related to that, number 6 is we get to serve people in ways that, are kind of untraditional, in ways that people would never really expect. And so for the Nutrition Corners, myself, our sales director, our GM, our chief marketing officer, we sat in a room last year and wrote what we call the Nutrition Corner Experience. The Nutrition Corner Experience is our sales guide. You know, we kind of took for granted that our guys, because they were passionate about health and fitness, knew how to handle people, knew how to deal with people, knew how to sell product. At the end of the day, we're a for-profit business. We want to sell product. And so we created a sales training program that was rooted in some real fundamentals of sales. It was rooted in principles of like reciprocity and scarcity and all these other sales tactics. But at the heart of it, it came down to teaching the guys to serve others in ways that they would never expect, and most importantly, is to do it without expecting anything in return. And it was almost like a light switch that we started to do that, and I said to Pat and Carl and Kenton that give this 3 months, and I know there's going to be a difference. We'll see it in the numbers, we'll see it. It'll take a little while to trickle into the community when the good word starts to spread. And sure enough, it was like a light switch that our sales numbers went through the roof, but more importantly, the job satisfaction. There was a passion relit in all of my managers at the stores. And it was all about teaching these guys to build connections in people. And we call them mints. You know, if you've listened to Jim's sermon, like, you know, where the waitress comes and gives you a mint with your check, you get a little extra tip. We talk about giving mints, and we have a special messaging app where one of the forums is called the Mints, and so it's where they can share their stories of how did they mint somebody today. So what was the mint that they gave? And it could be as little as, it's a hot day, somebody looks thirsty, give them a bottle of water out of it. Or it could be writing somebody a custom diet and training program for them on the spot. Or it might be, you know, somebody is sick, sending them a text message. It could be as little as remembering a customer's name, and we make this a big deal. Remember every customer that walks through your door's name. If you can do that, that carries so much weight in building that connection with the person so that they trust you and so that you can continue to be a great resource for them. So even though it started off as like a sales training program, what we were teaching them is how to serve people in ways that they might not otherwise do, and to do it in untraditional ways. It's not like, you're not changing their bandages, but you're becoming a real resource and a friend to these people that might be struggling with something that they might find easy, but these people might find really hard. So that was my six. I let actions speak louder than words. Patient and persistent. I crush it. I stick to my hedgehog concept or my spiritual calling. I practice multiplication. And I try to serve people in unconventional ways in which they'd never expect, and I don't expect anything in return. So, that's it. Thank you.